Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now. We are going to welcome Patrick DeHaan from GasBuddy onto the show. Patrick, another Monday morning, another interview with you, another interview amid surging gas prices. It's good to see you. How's your week starting off?
Well, it's kind of the calm before the storm here. Looking at some of these numbers, unfortunately, the weekend, we're always hoping that there's going to be some sort of end in sight to the situation as it unfolds, but we didn't get that. President Trump saying that Iran's offer was totally unacceptable. So, a bit of back to the drawing board here this morning. Oil prices, as you would expect, are jumping. National average has come down a bit over the weekend. We're down about 10 cents a gallon from our peak here, which is good news, but that's maybe where the good news ends. I do expect that gas prices may jump up a bit here over the course of this week after that disappointing news that Iran and the deal they offered isn't up to snuff, and that could push oil prices up. Well, oil prices were closer to $100 a barrel in overnight trade. It looks like we're down to about $97 a barrel. So there may be some other news in the background here, but back to the drawing board. Another week starting off with the Strait of Hormuz closed. I believe this is now the 11th straight Monday the strait has remained closed, and you and I are paying certainly more at the pump because of it. Diesel prices now nationally just about 20 cents a gallon away from reaching a new all-time record. And I do believe that diesel may see a new record here in the next week or two.
Keeping our eyes out for that diesel record, of course, and that affects so many more industries than just, filling up your car to get to work. And so that's something we're always monitoring. You mentioned other news in the background that could potentially impact prices. Can you expand on that a little bit? What else could be sort of a factor here in what we see?
Well, I haven't looked at all the headlines yet this morning, but as I mentioned, oil was closer to $100 a barrel overnight last night. There may be something I didn't see when I woke up this morning. Generally, when we see oil going from $100 in Sunday night trade back down to about 97, there may be a little bit of a development that I haven't read about here this morning. I know the president is in China meeting this morning with Chinese leadership. So that is something we'll have to look at as I'm trying to read the headlines here very quickly. Um, Iran is dismissing Trump's criticism of their latest proposal. So maybe the market is hoping that Iran would be back to the drawing board. Parties are talking back and forth. That's good. But yet not the development that we are seeing in reopening the strait. So another week starts with the strait closed, oil prices inching up, and that likely will impact gas prices here in the next couple of days. The current decline that we saw over the weekend in the national average was thanks to optimism that this deal was going to materialize mid last week. Oil prices fell back below $100 as the president talked about this deal. Well, now it hasn't happened, so oil prices could start to reaccelerate again.
And that, we see that negotiations are open, a proposal is sent, prices go up, and then when that proposal comes back and it doesn't lead to a permanent ceasefire, we see or prices go down and then prices go up. So it's the same thing. We're riding this
Mm.
wave of headlines. I'm glad you kind of
Yeah.
mentioned looking through the headlines to try to find those clues and breadcrumbs. We really are just waiting on the news of the day, and if it's positive, prices improve. If it's negative, they go back up. So it is an interesting situation that we're all in now. And, would you say that for people who are like, oh, I can time this, I'm going to try to time this out. I'm going to pay attention to the news and I'm going to know when I can get the best deals. Is that advisable or even possible for just, sort of regular people who are getting news from everyday sources?
Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day. That kind of phrase is somewhat fitting. I mean, to give you a sense, I mean, I've mistimed it now a couple times. So you might get right occasionally, but I've kind of given up on trying to time the market. Headlines develop on their time schedule, not mine. So this is one of those things that you have to be resigned to realize or be okay with the fact that the headlines are just going to happen completely outside of anyone's control. So you might time it. I mean, I think this morning might be a short-term good idea to fill your tank up, but again, admittedly, I've been wrong a couple times as well. So I would just love for this thing for the strait to reopen, for things to normalize. I think a lot of Americans are not happy as we inch closer to Memorial Day that gas prices are still well above the $4 a gallon mark in most of the country. GasBuddy tracking now only three states where gas prices are below $4. thankfully, and I don't know why I'm even saying thankfully, but I had the opportunity over the weekend myself to fill up for less than $4, which seemed like a good deal.
Absolutely, I'm totally with you. If you get less than $4, you jump on it. If I got less than $4 and I even had half a tank, I might just fill that thing up while I was rolling around. Now, you mentioned resignation. Is I'm wondering overall, big picture, and again, in some, it's all relative. In some aspects, we talk about this war having stretched on for some time. In other aspects, it's still a relatively short period of time. Have you guys noticed any sort of increase in interest or actual tangible transitions to people maybe saying, well, now's the time for me to go get an electric vehicle? Maybe I was thinking about it. It might have been in my future at some point. But has that been an impact of this at all? Of people deciding to make that move? Have you guys seen that?
Have I seen it personally? No, I'm sure at a fairly low level it's happening. But keep in mind the federal incentives went away. I think it was the end of 2025, or they phased out. So, I'm sure there's a couple people out of every 100 that are looking at electric vehicles more seriously, but it's not like everyone's going out there and spending tens of thousands of dollars on a new electric vehicle. Here's the other thing to think about that may reduce the ability for Americans or the desire for Americans to do that, as we've all been watching the narrative about data centers and electricity prices going up. So you may be trading one form of expensive fuel for another form of expensive electricity, as data centers really start to push electricity bills up across the country. So I don't know that a lot of Americans want to spend tens of thousands of dollars when electricity prices have been going up in virtually every state. Compared to last year, it's harder to make that trade off now, and that's becoming something along with gas prices going up because of the Strait of Hormuz. I think a lot of Americans are very in touch with utility prices having surged over the last year, and a lot of it because a lot of these massive power hungry data centers.
It's a great point, and it speaks to the depth of the affordability crisis that so many are feeling. Is where can I turn to get some relief? Now if someone is looking for relief, and we've talked about how trying to time these things is just really really difficult to do, and comes down to just getting lucky. If people said, hey, I'd be willing to go to a gas station that's a little out of the way if it meant that I could get better prices. Are there locations that are more prone to having a slightly lower price, both in terms like geographically or industrially? Are
Yeah,
there certain places you can go?
I mean there certainly are. I went back to Michigan. I'm in Illinois for Mother's Day, and on the way home, I drove 3 miles south of the interstate to fill up for a station that was about 30 to 40 cents lower than everyone else. It was 3.94, and all the truck stops and some of the other stations near the highway were closer to $4.30. So, there's always an opportunity to find a station at a lower price. And the GasBuddy app is, obviously, I work for GasBuddy, but it's also a great app to find where those lower prices are, whether they're in one area of a town or another. It's harder to know because there's never one spot that's always cheaper. At least in my experience, that it's rarely that I've seen always low prices in one area. Sometimes they pop up in some communities, and it's about tracking them down and finding them, and then figuring out a way that maybe you deviate the way you take to work or the way you take to school. Maybe you're like me. I'm driving back to Chicago. I would have had to go by these stations, and I just track a few more miles to the south, and I save 40 cents a gallon on an empty tank. That's absolutely worth it for me. But yeah, I mean, there's almost always an opportunity to save a lot of money on filling up. And the GasBuddy app is probably at the top of the list. I mean, Google Maps can do it in a different way. But once you become used to one of these platforms, pick one. Once you become used to it, it's muscle memory. You only spend 15 or 20 seconds looking for those lower prices, and boom, I saved $4 or $5 on a fill up.
Okay, so use your resources, including potentially the GasBuddy app, to try and go find those more advantageous options. All right, Patrick, I think that's all I got for you today. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Oh, we'll keep an eye on everything here, but yeah, expecting that diesel prices could hit a record. And again, it's still going to be a bumpy ride for gas prices. If and when I get the chance to break the news that things are going to improve, hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. But definitely waiting for that.
All right, we're looking forward to the day. We appreciate you taking some time with us on this Monday afternoon, however, and we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Patrick DeHaan with GasBuddy, as always, giving us a little bit more insight into what we're dealing with, and we continue to ride that roller coaster. The news changes day in and day out, and the gas prices certainly reflect that, as there is yet to be a permanent solution to the war in Iran and a permanent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Let's do an update here real quickly just to speak some context to what Patrick was saying. The United States and Iran still having trouble turning that ceasefire into a permanent solution. That also includes the two sides exchanging fire in recent days. Ships and Gulf states have been targeted. Fighting has flared up between Israel and Hezbollah, the militant group located in Lebanon. And President Donald Trump on Sunday said Iran's response to his latest proposal for peace was, all caps, quote, totally unacceptable. Now, Patrick also mentioned there's a trip to China today for President Trump where he will ultimately see Chinese President Xi Jinping. How does that impact the situation in Iran? China and Iran are allies in many ways, including having very, very strong economic ties. Now, could that lead to a situation where China and President Jinping are able to help sort of push this conflict towards a more permanent solution? Or is it something where ties will be more strained between Trump and Jinping because of the conflict with Iran? It's stuff that we simply won't know until the summit is over, but it's all worth sort of mentioning as context towards our coverage of that to come later on today.